The encounter. The Varrion diplomatic vessel Harmonious Journey glided silently through the asteroid field, its crystalline hull refracting starlight into kaleidoscopic patterns. Ambassador Zin'Thel stood on the observation deck, all six of his slender arms folded in contemplation as he watched the debris field ahead. The Varrions had explored this sector for decades, cataloging stellar phenomena and establishing peaceful contact with 3 sentient species. None had posed any particular challenge to their diplomatic protocols. Ambassador called Science Director Venley from her console, her voice musical with the natural harmonics all Varrions shared. We're detecting unusual energy signatures among the asteroids. Definitely artificial, but using radiation patterns we've never encountered. Zin'Thel glided across the polished floor, his hovering movement characteristic of his species' low-gravity evolution. Natural formation or constructed? Artificial, Venley confirmed, her compound eyes blinking in sequence. And such a structure. Heavily damaged. Some kind of vessel, but its design principles are completely foreign to our database. The ambassador felt a ripple of excitement flow through his neural network. First contact was always a moment of profound significance for Varrions, whose 1,000-year peaceful expansion had been guided by their central philosophy. Understanding precedes harmony. Broadcast standard greeting protocols on all frequencies, he ordered. Full diplomatic approach. No scanning that might be interpreted as aggressive. The Harmonious Journey adjusted course, its propulsion system leaving no visible trail as it approached the unknown vessel. As they drew closer, even Zin'Thel, who had encountered dozens of civilizations, felt surprise ripple through his sensory fronds. The ship was angular, utilitarian, and built with materials that seemed absurdly dense and inefficient. Its hull bore numerous signs of damage, scorch marks, debris impact craters, and what appeared to be deliberate weapons fire. Most concerning was the vessel's design itself. Unlike the Varrions' seamless organic vessels, this ship bristled with what could only be weapons systems. Are we certain it's not Korvan? Asked Fleet Coordinator Tulshan, referring to the only militaristic species the Varrions had encountered in recent memory. Definitely not, Venley replied. The technology signatures are completely unknown. A message alert chimed softly. We're receiving a response to our hail, announced Communications Specialist Eriva. Audio and visual. On screen, Zin'Thel directed, straightening his ceremonial robes. The view screen illuminated and the Varrions collectively drew back in surprise. The being before them was unlike any they had encountered, bipedal with only 2 arms, covered in some kind of synthetic material and possessing facial features that seemed compressed into a flat arrangement. Most striking was the color of the being's outer covering, black and gray with red accents and symbols that clearly denoted rank or function. This is Captain Elara Hayes of the United Earth Alliance vessel Indomitable, being said, its voice surprisingly clear despite lacking the resonance chambers that gave Varrion speech its melodic quality. We acknowledge your greeting. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. Zin'Thel recovered quickly from his surprise. Greetings, Captain Hayes. I am Ambassador Zin'Thel of the Varrion Cooperative. We are peaceful explorers and diplomats. We detected your vessel and approach to offer assistance as your ship appears damaged. The human's expression changed subtly, a narrowing of the visual sensors and a slight compression of the mouth opening. Zin'Thel had no context for interpreting these micro-expressions. Assistance is appreciated, Ambassador. Captain Hayes replied after a moment. We sustained damage during an encounter with an unidentified hostile force 3 days ago. We stabilized our critical systems, but our FTL drive is offline. Zin'Thel conferred briefly with his science team before responding. Captain Hayes, we would be honored to share our repair expertise with your crew. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss the details. Cultural exchange is the foundation of understanding between species. Hayes seemed to consider this, glancing to someone off-screen before returning her attention to the ambassador. We can arrange a meeting. I'll prepare a shuttle bay for your arrival with appropriate atmospheric conditions based on the data you're willing to share. 4 hours later, Zin'Thel led a delegation of 5 specialists aboard the human vessel. The shuttle bay was vastly different from the elegant, crystalline architecture of Varrion ships. Everything was modular, reinforced, and built with redundancy. Even the airlock system had triple fail-safes. Captain Hayes greeted them personally, accompanied by several officers. Up close, to humans were even more fascinating. Their skin tones varied widely, their physical stature differed significantly between individuals, and they moved with a purposeful efficiency the Varrions found almost aggressive. Welcome aboard the Indomitable, Hayes said. She was tall for her species, with dark skin and close-cropped hair. The insignia on her uniform gleamed under the harsh artificial lighting. I apologize for our condition. We're usually more presentable. Your ship has clearly endured significant combat, observed Fleet Coordinator Tulshan. Yet you continue to function with minimal crew casualties. Most impressive. Hayes' expression shifted again, something the Varrions would later learn was a smile, though it didn't entirely reach her eyes. The Indomitable lives up to her name, Coordinator. We're designed to take a beating and keep going. The human led them through corridors that showed signs of recent damage, patched hull breaches, replaced panels, and repair crews working efficiently to restore systems. What struck Zin'Thel most was how the humans seemed to accept their damaged condition as routine. "You designed this vessel explicitly for combat?" he asked, trying to keep any judgment from his harmonics. "The Indomitable is a multi-purpose heavy cruiser," Hayes explained. "Exploration, diplomacy, scientific research, and yes, defense capabilities. Earth learned early that the galaxy isn't always friendly. They arrive at what Hayes called the Strategic Command Center, a room dominated by holographic displays showing system status, astronomical data, and tactical overlays. Several humans work at stations, acknowledging their captain with brief nods. "Ambassador, this is my executive officer, Commander Daniel Chen, and Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez," Hayes said, introducing two humans who stepped forward. "Your technology is fascinating," said the engineer, Rodriguez, studying the Varrions with undisguised curiosity. "I've never seen crystalline-based propulsion systems before. Are they more efficient than our antimatter drives?" "They produce no harmful radiation and require minimal energy input," explains Science Director Venley, clearly pleased by the human's interest, "though they may lack the raw power output of your systems." As the technical teams began exchanging information, Zin'Thel noticed Captain Hayes studying a tactical display with her executive officer. Their postures had subtly shifted, becoming more alert. "Is something concerning you, Captain?" the ambassador inquired. Hayes hesitated before responding. "We're detecting anomalous readings at the edge of the asteroid field, similar energy signatures to the hostiles we encountered 3 days ago. It could be nothing, but the Varrion Cooperative has established peaceful relations with most species in this sector," Zin'Thel offered. "Perhaps we could assist in communication." Commander Chen exchanged a look with his captain. "With respect, Ambassador, these weren't the type interested in talking. They fired without provocation or warning." Before Zin'Thel could respond, alert signals flashed across the command displays. A human officer called out, "Captain, 3 vessels just dropped out of FTL at the field perimeter. Configuration matches the hostiles from the Proxima engagement." Hayes' demeanor transformed instantly. Gone was any diplomatic hesitation, replaced by focused command presence. "Battle stations. Shields to maximum. Power up defensive systems, but hold weapons lock." The Varrions watched in fascination and growing concern as the human crew moved with practiced efficiency, transforming their command center into what was clearly a war room. "Ambassador," Hayes said, her voice calm but authoritative, "I recommend your vessel moves behind the Indomitable. We have identification on these hostiles now. They're Korvan Imperium raiders, and they're not known for diplomatic solutions." Zin'Thel felt his neural network pulse with alarm. The Korvan Imperium, a species the Varrions had encountered only through disturbing reports from other peaceful civilizations. Aggressive expansionists who viewed non-militaristic species as resources to be harvested rather than equals to be respected. "The Harmonious journey has minimal defensive capabilities, Captain," he admitted. "Our philosophy has always been to resolve conflicts through communication and understanding." Hayes' expression hardened. "I respect your philosophy, Ambassador, but the Korvans don't share it. They attacked us without warning, and they'll do the same to you." As if to emphasize her point, the command center's main display showed 3 angular, predatory vessels moving purposefully through the asteroid field. "Get your ship behind us," Ambassador Hayes said, no longer a suggestion but a command. "We'll handle the Korvans." "Captain," protested Zin'Thel, "perhaps if we attempt to communicate are peaceful." He was interrupted by a communication alert. The main screen shifted to show a Korvan commander, a reptilian humanoid with armored exoskeletal plates and multiple cybernetic enhancements. Its voice translated as a harsh mechanical growl. "Human vessel and Varrion craft. You have trespassed in Imperium-claimed space. Surrender your vessels and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Zin'Thel stepped forward, his diplomatic training taking over. "Korvan Commander, we are peaceful explorers. The Varrion Cooperative seeks only understanding and..." The Korvan Commander made a dismissive gesture. "Varrions, your crystalline technology will make an excellent addition to our fleet once we reverse engineer it. Your crew will serve adequately in our processing facilities." Hayes moved beside the ambassador. "This is Captain Hayes of the Indomitable. We have no quarrel with the Korvan Imperium, but we will defend ourselves and our allies if attacked." The Korvan's facial plates shifted in what might have been amusement. "Humans, your reputation for disproportionate resistance is noted. It changes nothing. You are damaged and outnumbered. Surrender or be destroyed." The transmission ended abruptly. Hayes turned to Zin'Thel, her expression grave but determined. "Ambassador, I need your ship to move behind ours. Now, we'll protect your vessel, but I need to know your people are in a defensible position." For the first time in his diplomatic career, Zin'Thel found himself without a peaceful solution. The humans, a species he had just met, were offering to place themselves between danger and the Varrions without hesitation. "Very well, Captain. The harmonious journey will comply, but what can your damaged vessel possibly do against 3 Korvan warships?" Captain Hayes' lips curled into what the Varrions would later learn was a predatory smile. "Ambassador Zin'Thel, you're about to learn why humans have survived in this galaxy despite being technologically outmatched by most species we encounter." She turned to her crew. "Battle Plan Omega. Let's show these Korvans why attacking a human ship is always a mistake, even when we're already damaged." As Zin'Thel hurried back to his shuttle, he couldn't help but wonder what sort of species he had encountered, one that faced overwhelming odds not with fear or negotiation, but with what appeared to be anticipation, trial by fire. Ambassadors, and they stood on the bridge of the harmonious journey, watching the tactical display with growing disbelief. The human vessel Indomitable, a ship his science team had assessed as operating at less than 70% capacity, was maneuvering with impossible precision through the asteroid field, simultaneously placing itself between the Varrion diplomatic vessel and the approaching Korvan warships. "They cannot possibly be planning to engage," whispered Fleet Coordinator Tulshan. "Their energy readings suggest their shields are at minimal capacity. The Korvans outgunned them 3-1. Science Director Venli's compound eyes blinked rapidly as she analyzed incoming data. "Their power distribution is unusual. They're routing energy in patterns I don't understand. It's as though they're deliberately creating vulnerabilities in some systems to reinforce others." On the view screen, the Indomitable fired its maneuvering thrusters, rotating to present its least damaged flank toward the approaching Korvan vessels. Captain Hayes' voice came through on the communication channel they had established. "Ambassador, keep your vessel within 5 kilometers of our stern. We're creating a defensive envelope that should extend to your position. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to communicate with the Korvans again." Captain Hayes, Zin'Thel responded, his harmonics vibrating with concern. "The Varrion Cooperative cannot condone violence even in self-defense. Perhaps if we—" "With respect, Ambassador," Hayes interrupted, her voice firm. "Your philosophies won't matter to the Korvans once they've harvested your technology and enslaved your crew. Stay behind us and prepare for evasive maneuvers if our defense fails." The communication ended. Zin'Thel exchanged troubled glances with his senior staff. In 1,000 years of space exploration, the Varrions had never engaged in combat. Their defensive systems were designed solely to withstand natural phenomena, radiation, micrometeorites, solar flares. Against directed weapons fire, they would offer minimal protection. "The human vessel is powering weapons systems," reported Security Liaison Mevdor, sounding both fascinated and disturbed. "Their energy output just doubled. How can they generate such power with their damaged systems?" "They're adjusting shield harmonics," added Venli. "Fascinating adaptation. They are tuning their shields specifically to the Korvan weapon frequencies based on their previous encounter." The Korvan vessels spread out in a classic pincer formation, clearly intending to surround the human ship. Their first volley of energy weapons lanced across space, a warning shot that deliberately fell short of the Indomitable. What happened next astonished the watching Varrions. Instead of retreating or holding position, the human vessel accelerated directly toward the lead Korvan ship. The Indomitable fired a precise barrage that targeted the Korvan's forward weapon emplacements, followed by what appeared to be small, independent projectiles. "Are those physical munitions?" asked Hulshin incredulously. "They're using kinetic weapons alongside energy-based systems." The Korvans, apparently equally surprised by this hybrid approach, attempted to adjust their shields. The human projectiles detonated just before impact, creating localized electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Korvan shields at specific points, allowing the Indomitable's energy weapons to strike with devastating precision. "Brilliant tactical adaptation," murmured Venli. "They know they can't match Korvan energy output, so they're using primitive kinetic weapons to create vulnerabilities." The lead Korvan vessel returned fire, landing several hits on the Indomitable's port side. The human ship shuddered visibly, venting atmosphere briefly before emergency systems sealed the breaches. Yet instead of withdrawing, it maintained its aggressive approach. "They took significant damage," noted Mevdor. "Why aren't they retreating?" Through the open communication channel, they could hear fragments of the human command structure in action. Captain Hayes' voice remained unnervingly calm despite the chaos around her. "Reroute power from decks 7 through 12 to forward shields. Prepare another salvo of EMP warheads. Target their propulsion systems this time." Another voice, presumably Commander Chen, reported hull breach on Deck 5. Casualties reported, medical teams responding. Seal those sections and continue the attack pattern, Hayes ordered without hesitation. Engineering, I need more power to the weapon systems. Zin'Thel felt his neural network pulse with distress. The humans were sustaining injuries, losing sections of their vessel, yet continuing to fight with undiminished resolve. It defied everything the Varrions understood about rational behavior. The battle intensified as the other two Korvan vessels joined the engagement. The Indomitable was now surrounded, taking fire from multiple directions. Its shields flickered dangerously, but its return fire remained precisely targeted and surprisingly effective. Ambassador, called Communications Specialist Eriva, were receiving a signal from within the asteroid field. It's using Earth Alliance protocols, but on a frequency the Korvans appear to be jamming. Put it through, Zin'Thel ordered. A human voice, distorted by interference, came through the speakers, repeating, "This is Lieutenant Commander Reyes of Earth Alliance Special Operations. Indomitable, if you're receiving this, be advised we have mining charges positioned throughout the asteroid field, awaiting your signal to detonate." Zin'Thel exchanged bewildered looks with his staff. There are more humans in the asteroid field. How did we not detect them? On the tactical display, they watched as Captain Hayes executed a maneuver that could only be described as suicidal. The Indomitable cut its engines briefly, allowing momentum to carry it into the midst of the Korvan formation before reactivating propulsion at maximum thrust. This placed all three Korvan vessels in close proximity to each other. Hayes' voice came through clearly. "Lieutenant Commander, authorization Alpha 7 Delta. Execute in 15 seconds. All hands brace for shockwave." The Indomitable suddenly accelerated away from the Korvan formation, burning its engines beyond safety parameters to create distance. They knew this was coming, realized Fleet Coordinator Tulshan. This entire battle strategy was designed to position the Korvans exactly where they wanted them. Seconds later, multiple explosions rippled through the asteroid field. The detonations created a chain reaction, propelling asteroid fragments toward the clustered Korvan vessels at tremendous velocity. Their shields, already stressed from combat with the Indomitable, couldn't fully deflect the barrage of natural projectiles. "Incredible," whispered Science Director Ven Lai. "They used the environment itself as a weapon. They've effectively weaponized the asteroid field." Two of the Korvan vessels sustained severe damage from the asteroid impacts. The third, though damaged, oriented itself toward the retreating Indomitable and fired what appeared to be some form of high-energy plasma weapon. The human vessel couldn't evade in time. The plasma stream struck its already damaged port side, creating a catastrophic breach. For a moment, the Varrions thought they were witnessing the destruction of the human ship as secondary explosions cascaded along its hull. But somehow, the Indomitable remained operational. Emergency force fields contained the worst of the damage, and the vessel continued to maneuver, though with visibly reduced capability. "How is that possible?" Mevdor asked. "Their entire port section is compromised. By all logical analysis, their structural integrity should have failed completely. The Korvans are regrouping," reported Tulshan. "Their lead vessel is severely damaged, but the other two are still combat capable. They're preparing for another attack run." Zin'Thel made a decision that went against every protocol in Varrion diplomatic history. Communications opened a channel to the Indomitable. When Captain Hayes appeared on screen, the Varrions were shocked by her appearance. Blood streaked one side of her face and smoke filled the command center behind her. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow, and crew members moved urgently in the background, fighting to keep their systems operational. "Ambassador," Hayes acknowledged, her voice hoarse but unwavering. "I recommend your vessel retreat to the far side of the asteroid field. We'll keep the Korvans occupied." "Captain, you cannot continue this engagement," Zin'Thel protested. "Your ship is critically damaged. Your crew is suffering casualties." "We've been in worse situations," Hayes replied with what appeared to be a grim smile. "We just need to hold out until—" She was interrupted by Commander Chen. "Captain, Korvan vessels are regrouping. They're charging weapon systems for another attack run." Hayes turned back to the view screen. "Ambassador, this is your last chance to withdraw. We'll cover your retreat." Instead of answering directly, Zin'Thel turned to his science team. "Director Ven Lai, is it possible to reconfigure our crystalline propulsion matrix to generate a resonance field?" Ven Lai's compound eyes widened. "Yes, but that would drain our primary power systems. We would be left with only emergency life support." "Do it," ordered Zin'Thel. Then to Hayes, "Captain, the harmonious journey will not abandon the Indomitable. Our species may abhor violence, but we honor courage and self-sacrifice. Prepare your vessel to take shelter behind our resonance field." For the first time, Hayes appeared genuinely surprised. "Ambassador, what are you?" "There is no time to explain. When I give the signal, move your vessel to these coordinates." Zin'Thel transmitted a set of spatial coordinates. "Trust us, as we have trusted you." The Varrion vessel moved out from behind the Indomitable, positioning itself directly between the human ship and the approaching Korvans. The crystalline hull began to pulse with increasing intensity, drawing energy from every non-essential system. Resonance matrix at full capacity, reported Ven Lai. Field will extend approximately 7 kilometers in all directions once activated. Duration limited to 240 seconds. Captain Hayes, move to position now, Zin'Thel instructed. The damaged human vessel limped into position behind the Harmonious Journey just as the Korvans opened fire. At that precise moment, Ven Lai activated the resonance field. A shimmering, translucent barrier expanded outward from the Varrion vessel. When the Korvan energy weapon struck it, something remarkable happened. The energy didn't dissipate or overwhelm the barrier. Instead, it was absorbed, causing the crystalline field to glow with increasing brilliance. The resonance field is stable, reported Ven Lai with evident relief. It's converting the Korvan weapon energy and feeding it back into our systems. Through the communication channel, they heard Commander Chen's astonished voice. Captain, are they absorbing the Korvan attacks? Not just absorbing, Hayes replied, her tone revealing newfound respect. They're using the energy against them. Ambassador, I believe we've both been underestimating each other. As the Korvans continued their barrage, apparently confused by the ineffectiveness of their weapons, the resonance field grew stronger. After nearly 2 minutes of sustained fire, the Korvans ceased their attack. Field strength at maximum capacity, announced Ven Lai. We can now redirect the accumulated energy, but we have never used this capability as a weapon. You still don't have to, replied Hayes over the communication link. Target coordinates incoming. Just release the energy there. The coordinates Hayes provided indicated an empty area of space adjacent to the Korvan vessels, not targeting the ships directly. Zin'Thel understood immediately. The humans are providing us with a compromise that respects our principles. Release the energy at those exact coordinates, Director. The new alliance. 3 days after the battle with the Korvan Imperium vessels, the command centers of both the Harmonious Journey and the Indomitable had been transformed into a joint operations facility. Humans and Varrions worked side by side, exchanging technologies, strategies, and cultural insights. With an urgency driven by their shared predicament, they remained in contested space, repairs incomplete, with the very real possibility that the Korvans would return with reinforcements. Ambassador Zin'Thel observed the collaboration with a mixture of fascination and philosophical recalibration. His entire diplomatic career had been built on the Varrion principle that understanding preceded harmony, yet these humans had demonstrated that sometimes protection preceded understanding. Captain Hayes approached him, moving with the slight limp she had acquired during the battle. The human commander had refused regenerative treatment until all her critically injured crew members had been cared for, a leadership philosophy that had earned her tremendous respect among the Varrions. Ambassador, Hayes greeted him. Your medical teams have worked miracles with our injured crew. 3 of my people who would have died under our care are now stable and recovering. Your physiology is remarkably resilient, Zin'Thel replied. Your cellular regeneration rates exceed even our most optimistic predictions. It seems humans were designed to survive trauma. Hayes' expression changed subtly. What the Varrions had learned was a rueful smile. Not designed, Ambassador. Evolved. Earth isn't a gentle world. Those who couldn't recover from injury didn't pass on their genes. This casual reference to evolutionary pressure through death shocked Zin'Thel, though he had grown better at concealing such reactions. And your ship? Chief Engineer Rodriguez reported you've restored power to 60% of damaged systems. The new alliance. 3 days after the battle with the Korvan Imperium vessels, the command centers of both the Harmonious Journey and the Indomitable had been transformed into a joint operations facility. Humans and Varrions worked side by side, exchanging technologies, strategies, and cultural insights with an urgency driven by their shared predicament. They remained in contested space, repairs incomplete, with the very real possibility that the Korvans would return with reinforcements. Ambassadors Zin'Thel observed the collaboration with a mixture of fascination and philosophical recalibration. His entire diplomatic career had been built on the Varrion principle that understanding preceded harmony, yet these humans had demonstrated that sometimes protection preceded understanding. Captain Hayes approached him, moving with the slight limp she had acquired during the battle. The human commander had refused regenerative treatment until all her critically injured crew members had been cared for, a leadership philosophy that had earned her tremendous respect among the Varrions. Ambassador, Hayes greeted him. Your medical teams have worked miracles with our injured crew. 3 of my people who would have died under our care are now stable and recovering. Your physiology is remarkably resilient, Zin'Thel replied. Your cellular regeneration rates exceed even our most optimistic predictions. It seems humans were designed to survive trauma. Hayes' expression changed subtly. What the Varrions had learned was a rueful smile. Not designed, Ambassador. Evolved. Earth isn't a gentle world. Those who couldn't recover from injury didn't pass on their genes. This casual reference to evolutionary pressure through death shocked Zin'Thel, though he had grown better at concealing such reactions. And your ship? Chief Engineer Rodriguez reported you've restored power to 60% of damaged systems. We're operational, Hayes confirmed. Not pretty, but functional. Your crystalline technology has helped us bypass several damaged power conduits. The integration is unconventional when effective. Across the room, human engineers and Varrion technicians huddled over holographic displays, creating hybrid systems that neither species would have developed independently. The human approach of good enough for now, perfect at later, conflicted with the Varrion philosophy of harmonic design. Yet somehow, the tension between these approaches was yielding innovative solutions. Commander Chen approached carrying a data tablet. Captain, Ambassador. Long-range scans confirm our suspicions. There's a Korvan battle group assembling at the edge of this system. Estimate 7 vessels, including at least 1 dreadnought class. Zin'Thel felt his neural network pulse with alarm. 7 vessels? The resonance field cannot protect both ships against such firepower, even if we had time to fully recharge our matrices. Hayes studied the tactical display with a focused calm that still astonished the Varrions. Where they expected anxiety in the face of overwhelming odds, this human showed only increased concentration. We need to leave this system, she stated simply. Both vessels, before the Korvans can organize their attack. The Harmonious Journey can achieve FTL capability within 6 hours, Fleet Coordinator Tulshan reported. However, your full drive remains severely damaged. Our technicians estimate at least 36 hours of repairs before it could safely activate. Hayes nodded, unsurprised. We don't have 36 hours, which means we need an alternative approach. Science Director Venele stepped forward, her usually reserved demeanor replaced by an uncharacteristic excitement. Captain Hayes, Ambassador. I believe we developed a theoretical solution. It would require significant risk, but our simulations suggest an 82% probability of success. All attention turned to the Varrion scientist who activated a holographic display showing both vessels connected by pulsing energy conduits. We've been studying your full drive technology, Venele explained. It operates on principles completely different from our crystalline propulsion, yet both manipulate space-time to achieve faster-than-light travel. We believe we can create a temporary synchronization between our systems. A tandem jump? Commander Chen asked, grasping the concept immediately. Using your propulsion system to carry both vessels? Precisely, Venele confirmed. The Harmonious Journey would generate the initial field, while the Indomitable would stabilize it using your full drive's containment systems. Neither ship could accomplish this alone in their current state, but together. Together, we exceed the sum of our parts, Hayes completed, sharing a meaningful glance with Zin'Thel. Just like during the battle. Over the next 5 hours, both crews worked feverishly to implement Venele's plan. Temporary conduits were established between the vessels, crystalline technology interfaced with human systems in ways neither species had ever attempted, and the mathematical models were refined continuously as new data emerged. Throughout this process, Zin'Thel found himself increasingly drawn to engineering discussions with Rodriguez and scientific debates with the human science officer, Dr. Abernathy. What had begun as a diplomatic mission and transformed into something unprecedented in Varrion history. A genuine collaboration with a militaristic species that somehow didn't compromise Varrion principles of peace. Your people adapt quickly, Ambassador, Hayes observed during a brief respite as they observed the bustling activity. I wouldn't have expected pacifists to integrate so seamlessly with the military personnel. We adapt through understanding, Captain, Zin'Thel replied. And what we've come to understand about humans is that your military capability doesn't define your species. It merely reflects your determination to protect what you value. Your crew fights not because they desire conflict, but because they refuse to surrender to those who would harm them. Hayes nodded slowly. That's probably the most accurate assessment of humanity I've ever heard from a non-human species. Most either fear us as violent primitives or dismiss us as technologically inferior. Few understand that our greatest weapon has always been our refusal to accept defeat. The moment of reflection was interrupted by an urgent alert. The holographic display showed the Korvan battle group accelerating toward their position, no longer gathering at the system's edge but moving with clear purpose. They've detected our power signatures, Commander Chen reported. They know we're attempting to leave the system. Hayes immediately shifted to command mode. Time to FTL capability. 37 minutes at current integration rates, replied Rodriguez. We can't rush the final calibrations or the field could collapse during transition. Hayes turned to Zin'Thel. Ambassador, your vessel should prepare to leave immediately. The Indomitable will hold off the Korvans. That is not acceptable, Zin'Thel responded with uncharacteristic firmness. The Harmonious Journey will not abandon the Indomitable, not after what your crew has sacrificed for our safety. This isn't about diplomatic niceties, Ambassador Hayes countered. It's simple mathematics. Your vessel alone can escape. Both of us together will be caught. You misunderstand me, Captain, Zin'Thel replied. I am not suggesting we flee together. I am suggesting we fight together. A profound silence fell over the command center as humans and Varrions alike stared at the ambassador in shock. In 1,000 years of recorded history, no Varrion diplomatic vessel had ever engaged in offensive action. Ambassador, Hayes said carefully, your people are pacifists. You lack weapons systems. We lack dedicated weapons systems, corrected Fleet Coordinator Tulshin, stepping forward. But as the Korvans discovered, our resonance field can redirect energy. With your tactical guidance, perhaps we can employ it more precisely this time. Hayes studied the Varrions with newfound respect. A defensive system repurposed for tactical application. Innovative adaptation under pressure. Her lips curved into a smile. Maybe our species aren't so different after all. The next half hour was a flurry of preparation. While engineers from both vessels continued the FTL integration, tactical teams developed a coordinated defense strategy. The Indomitable's remaining weapons systems would provide direct fire, while the Harmonious Journey would use its resonance field to redirect Korvan energy weapons back at their sources. When the Korvan battle group arrived, 8 vessels in total, their formation clearly designed to overwhelm and capture rather than destroy, they found not a panic escape attempt but a coordinated defensive position. Captain Hayes opened a communication channel to all vessels. Korvan Command, this is Captain Elara Hayes of the Indomitable. We are leaving this system peacefully. Attempt to prevent us, and you will face our Tread Claw and hit the max length for a message and has paused its response. You can write continue to keep the chat going. Zin'Thel continue with Part 3 of the Unbowed, First Contact with Humanity's Finest. Part 3. The New Alliance continued. Captain Hayes opened a communication channel to all vessels. Korvan Command, this is Captain Elara Hayes of the Indomitable. We are leaving this system peacefully. Attempt to prevent us, and you will face the combined capabilities of Earth Alliance and Varrion cooperative forces. The Korvan commander's image appeared on the shared tactical display, a different officer than before, with more extensive cybernetic enhancements and ceremonial armor indicating higher rank. Human vessel, the Korvan responded, mandibles clicking in what intelligence reports suggested was amusement. Your damaged ship and the Varrion diplomatic vessel pose no threat to an Imperial battle group. Surrender and you will be granted appropriate processing status. We decline your generous offer, Hayes replied evenly, and I recommend you reconsider your approach. Your previous encounter with our vessels should have demonstrated that conventional tactical analysis doesn't apply in this situation. Without waiting for a response, Hayes cut the transmission and turned to her crew and the Varrion representatives. 23 minutes until FTL capability. We need to hold them off until then. The Korvan response was immediate and overwhelming. A coordinated barrage of energy weapons from all 8 vessels, focused primarily on the Indomitable as the perceived greater threat. Shields at maximum, reported Chen as the human vessel shuddered under the assault. Rerouting emergency power. Shield integrity at 62% and falling. Now, Ambassador, Hayes called out. The Harmonious Journey activated its resonance field at precisely the moment the Korvans initiated their second volley. This time, however, the crystalline technology had been reconfigured based on human tactical suggestions. Instead of creating a defensive bubble, the field formed a directional cone that channeled the incoming energy. Resonance field holding, reported Science Director Venlai from the Varrion vessel. Energy redirection at 84% efficiency. The redirected Korvan weapons fire struck one of their smaller vessels with devastating effect. Clearly unprepared for their own weapons to be used against them, the Korvan ship's shields collapsed and its propulsion systems went offline. 1 down, 7 to go, Hayes noted grimly. Rodriguez, status on the FTL integration? Field stabilizers are synchronized, the chief engineer reported. Quantum matrices are aligning. 18 minutes to full capability. The Korvans adjusted their strategy, spreading out to attack from multiple vectors. 4 vessels focused on the Indomitable, while the others attempted to flank the Harmonious Journey, clearly recognizing the threat posed by the resonance field. They're adapting, Chen warned, targeting our connecting conduits specifically. Protect those connections at all costs, Hayes ordered. Redirect remaining point defense systems to cover the conduits. The battle intensified as the Korvans brought their numerical advantage to bear. The Indomitable's remaining weapons systems fired continuously, focusing on disabling rather than destroying the Korvan vessels. A tactical choice that surprised Zin'Thel. You're targeting their propulsion and weapons, he observed, not their power cores or life support. We're buying time, not committing genocide, Hayes replied without taking her eyes off the tactical display. Destroying their ability to fight is enough. A massive impact rocked the Indomitable as a Korvan heavy cruiser landed a direct hit on its starboard section. Warning signals flashed across the command center. Hull breach, decks 3 through 5, reported Chen. Emergency force fields holding but power reserves are critical. 15 minutes to FTL capability, Rodriguez called out, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The Korvan dreadnought moved into position, its massive form dwarfing both the human and Varrion vessels. Its main weapon system, a particle accelerator capable of piercing almost any known shielding, began charging. They're preparing to disable both vessels simultaneously, warned Tulshan. The resonance field cannot absorb that level of concentrated energy. Hayes studied the tactical display for a moment, then turned to Zin'Thel. Ambassador, I have a proposal that violates no Varrion principles but requires precise timing and absolute trust between our vessels. The plan Hayes outlined was audacious to the point of insanity by Varrion standards, yet its underlying logic was sound. As the Korvan dreadnought's main weapon reached full charge, both the Indomitable and the Harmonious Journey executed a synchronized maneuver, positioning themselves so that the smaller Korvan vessels were directly between them and the dreadnought. When the dreadnought fired, its particle beam cut through space and directly into 2 of its own escort vessels. The Korvans, unable to abort the firing sequence once initiated, watched in horror as their own weapon disabled their support ships. Resonance field reconfiguring for maximum absorption, reported Venli as the Varrion vessel intercepted the residual energy from the dreadnought's weapon, channeling power directly into the FTL integration matrix. "It's working," Rodriguez exclaimed. "The additional energy is accelerating the quantum alignment. New estimate to FTL capability, 7 minutes. The remaining Korvan vessels regrouped, clearly preparing for another coordinated assault. The dreadnought's main weapon would require time to recharge, but its secondary systems were more than capable of overwhelming the damaged Earth vessel. They're targeting our bridge specifically," Chen reported as the tactical display highlighted probable attack vectors. "They've identified our command structure as a vulnerability." Hayes nodded grimly. "Initiate command dispersal protocol. Chen, take secondary command from engineering." Rodriguez maintained FTL coordination. As her officers moved to their assigned positions, Hayes turned to Zin'Thel. "Ambassador, I recommend you return to your vessel immediately. When the FTL field activates, both crews need to be on their respective ships." Zin'Thel hesitated, studying the human captain. In just a few days, this alien commander had completely transformed his understanding of warfare, diplomacy, and the complex moral calculations that govern survival in a hostile universe. "Captain Hayes, before I depart, I must know, why did your vessel come to this system? The truth, please." Despite the chaos of battle around them, Hayes met his gaze directly. "We received fragmented transmissions about Korvan expansion into this sector. Specifically, intelligence suggesting they were targeting a species known for crystalline technology and peaceful diplomatic policies. We came to verify the threat and warn your people if necessary." "You came to protect a species you had never met," Zin'Thel clarified. "At great risk to your own vessel and crew." Hayes shrugged slightly. "That's what humans do, Ambassador. We may not have your technological sophistication or your philosophical consistency, but we recognize injustice when we see it, and we act." Another impact rocked the ship as the Korvan vessels launched a new assault. 5 minutes to FTL capability, Rodriguez's voice announced over the communication system. Zin'Thel made his decision. "Captain Hayes, when we return to Varrion space, I will personally advocate for a formal alliance between our peoples. Our philosophies may differ, but our core values, the protection of life and liberty, align perfectly." Hayes smiled through the smoke and chaos of her damaged bridge. "I look forward to that diplomatic exchange, Ambassador. Now go. Your people need you on your vessel." As Zin'Thel and the remaining Varrion delegation hurried to their shuttle, the Indomitable absorbed another devastating hit. The human vessel's shields were failing, its hull integrity compromised in multiple sections, yet its crew continued to fight with unwavering determination. Back aboard the Harmonious Journey, Zin'Thel joined his command team as they monitored the final preparations for the tandem FTL jump. On the main viewer, the Indomitable was visible, scarred, venting atmosphere in places, yet still positioning itself to absorb the brunt of the Korvan attack, protecting the connecting conduits that would allow both vessels to escape. 3 minutes to FTL capability, reported Venli. "Field harmonics stabilizing." The Korvan dreadnought moved into position for what would clearly be a killing blow against the Indomitable. Its main weapon was recharged, targeting systems locked on the human vessel's critical systems. "They won't survive that direct hit," warned Fleet Coordinator Tulshan. "Even human ingenuity has limits." Zin'Thel made the second unprecedented decision of his diplomatic career. Divert all power from life support and secondary systems to the resonance field. Position our vessel between the Indomitable and the Dreadnought. Ambassador, that exceeds safety parameters for the crystalline matrix, Venli cautioned. Field collapse during the movement could be catastrophic. The humans have repeatedly exceeded safety parameters to protect us, Zin'Thel replied. We will do no less for them. The Harmonious Journey maneuvered with grace despite the strain on its systems, positioning itself directly in the Dreadnought's firing line. As the massive Korvan weapon discharged, the Varrion vessel's resonance field captured the energy, far more than it was designed to handle. Field integrity critical, reported Venli, her voice tight with concentration. Crystalline matrix approaching failure point. Channel the excess energy directly into the FTL system, ordered Zin'Thel. Use their attack to power our escape. What followed was a dangerous dance of energy and physics. The resonance field began to fail, but not before redirecting the massive energy influx into the tandem FTL system. Alarms blared throughout both vessels as power surges threatened to overload critical systems. 60 seconds to FTL capability, announced Rodriguez from the Indomitable. Field stabilization at minimum acceptable parameters. The Korvan vessels, realizing their targets were about to escape, concentrated all available firepower on the connecting conduits between the ships. Point defense systems from the Indomitable intercepted most attacks, but some made it through, damaging the delicate connections. Conduit integrity at 47%, warned Venli. We're losing the harmonic resonance between vessels. 30 seconds, Rodriguez counted down, her voice barely audible over the sound of systems failing around her. Captain Hayes' voice cut through the chaos. Ambassador, we need to synchronize our jump vectors precisely. The moment the field activates, the Korvans will attempt to disrupt it with gravitational weapons. Understood, Captain, Zin'Thel replied. Coordinates locked. Our vessels will emerge in Varrion space, Sector 7, Quadrant 3. 15 seconds. The Korvan dreadnought, recognizing the imminent escape, maneuvered for one final devastating attack. Its secondary weapons charged, targeting the exact center of the tenuous energy field connecting the human and Varrion vessels. 10 seconds. They're going to hit the field junction, warned Chen. Impact in 5 seconds. 5 seconds to FTL activation. In that moment, Captain Hayes made a decision that would be remembered in both human and Varrion histories. The Indomitable fired its emergency thrusters, positioning itself directly in the path of the Korvan attack. The human vessel took the full impact, its already compromised hull buckling under the strain. Field junction intact, reported Venli. FTL activation in 3, 2, 1. The tandem field activated, enveloping both vessels in a shimmering bubble of distorted spacetime. For a breathless moment, it seemed the field might collapse under the strain in the Korvan attack. Then, with a flash of brilliant light, both vessels vanished from normal space, leaving the Korvan battle group firing empty coordinates. The transition was violent and unstable, nothing like the smooth FTL jumps either species was accustomed to. Power systems fluctuated wildly, structural integrity alarms blared on both vessels, and for several terrifying minutes it seemed they might be lost in the space between conventional dimensions. Then, abruptly, they emerged in normal space. The view screen on the Harmonious Journey showed the familiar stars of Varrion territory. They had made it. Damage assessment, Zin'Thel ordered, struggling to remain upright as the ship's artificial gravity stabilized. All systems functioning at minimal capacity, reported Tulshan. No casualties. Crystalline matrix requires complete reconstruction, but we're home, Ambassador. The Indomitable? Zin'Thel asked urgently. There was a tense pause before communications specialist Ariva responded. They're here, Ambassador. But they're not responding to hails. Their power signature is extremely weak. Establish visual contact immediately, Zin'Thel ordered, and prepare emergency response teams for transfer. When the image of the human vessel appeared on screen, a collective gasp went through the Varrion command center. The Indomitable had survived, but just barely. Huge sections of its hull were simply gone, vented to space during the violent transition. Emergency force fields contained the remaining atmosphere, giving the ship a ghostly, shimmering appearance. After several agonizing moments, a communication channel opened. The image was distorted and fragmented, but Captain Hayes was visible, bloodied, supported by medics, but alive. Ambassador, she greeted, her voice weak but determined. It seems your navigational calculations were impeccable. We've arrived exactly where you said we would. Captain Hayes, Zin'Thel replied, his harmonics vibrating with emotion. Your vessel's sacrifice will not be forgotten. We are dispatching assistance immediately. Hayes managed a pained smile. No sacrifice, Ambassador. Just doing what humans do, surviving against the odds and protecting those who stand with us. 3 weeks later, in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Varrion High Council, Ambassadors Zin'Thel stood beside Captain Hayes. The human officer still moved with a slight limp, but her uniform was immaculate, displaying the newly created insignia representing the Earth-Varrion alliance. Before them, the assembled representatives of both species waited expectantly. The Indomitable had been moved to a Varrion shipyard, where it was being repaired and upgraded with hybrid technology developed during their ordeal. Already, engineering teams from both species were designing a new class of vessel that incorporated the best elements of human adaptability and Varrion harmonics. The universe is not always kind, Zin'Thel addressed the assembly, his voice carrying the full harmonic range of formal Varrion oratory. For 1,000 years, the Varrion Cooperative has explored space guided by our belief that understanding precedes harmony. We sought peaceful exchange with all we encountered, believing that violence could always be avoided through communication and empathy. He paused, looking at the human delegation. We were wrong. Not in our values, but in our understanding of how those values must sometimes be defended. When faced with species like the Korvan Imperium, who view peaceful philosophies as weakness to be exploited, understanding alone is insufficient. Captain Hayes stepped forward. Similarly, humanity has often relied too heavily on our capacity to fight. Our history is marked by conflict. Our technology is often developed for war before being adapted for peace. We survived because we never surrendered, but we sometimes forgot what we were fighting for. Zin'Thel gestured to the holographic display showing the designs for the new hybrid vessels. Together, our species have discovered a new path. The humans taught us that sometimes harmony must be protected by those willing to stand against aggression. We taught them that fighting without understanding leads only to endless conflict. The Korvan Imperium believed they could easily defeat a damaged human warship and capture a Varrion diplomatic vessel, Hayes continued. They failed to understand that together, we became something greater than either of us alone. Today, Zin'Thel concluded, we formalized the alliance that began in battle but will flourish in peace. The Varrion Cooperative and Earth Alliance stand together, not just against threats like the Korvans, but for a vision of galactic civilization where understanding and strength are not opposing values but complementary ones. As the assembly erupted in approval, Hayes leaned slightly toward Zin'Thel. Not bad for a first contact that began with both of us completely misunderstanding each other. The ambassador's skin rippled with the Varrion equivalent of laughter. Perhaps understanding doesn't always precede harmony, Captain. Sometimes, it seems, harmony can be achieved in the midst of chaos when disparate species find common cause. That, Hayes replied with a smile, might be the most profound thing I've ever heard from a diplomat. I've had an excellent teacher in pragmatism, Zin'Thel acknowledged, though I prefer to think we've both been students and teachers these past weeks. As they turned to face the cheering assembly, both leaders knew that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The Korvan Imperium would soon discover that their failed attack had created something unprecedented, a union between a species that would never surrender and one that would never stop seeking understanding. Together, they represented a new force in the galaxy, one that could fight when necessary but preferred to create rather than destroy. And across the vast reaches of space, other species watched with interest as news of this unlikely alliance spread, some with hope, others with concern, but all recognizing that the balance of power had shifted in ways no one could have predicted. For Captain Elara Hayes and Ambassador Zin'Thel, this was just the beginning of a partnership that would redefine what was possible when different worlds found common ground among the stars.